Daniel Reyes stared at the bulldozer parked on his private lakefront property without any warning. His hands trembled as he gripped the fresh violation notice stapled crookedly onto his dock post. The morning sun reflected harshly off the calm lake water he had dreamed about for years. Margaret Coles stood near the shoreline wearing pearls and an expression of total entitlement. She claimed the lake access belonged to the HOA common area despite his original deed. Daniel had served 2 tours overseas before finally buying this quiet lakeside home for healing. The silence around him felt heavier than any combat zone he had survived years earlier. His prosthetic leg ached as he limped closer toward the woman destroying his peaceful retirement. Margaret smiled coldly and said the rules existed long before he ever moved into the neighborhood. Neighbors peeked through curtains, afraid to speak against the woman controlling their entire community board. Daniel's wife Elena rushed outside, gasping when she saw their dock partially torn apart already. She whispered his name softly, afraid the confrontation might trigger old painful memories from war. Margaret ignored Elena completely and continued reading absurd fines printed on official-looking paperwork. Daniel's jaw tightened as he remembered the agent who promised this lake access was guaranteed. He clutched his original property survey, proof that contradicted everything Margaret was claiming today. The cold lake breeze carried the scent of fresh paint covering the illegal eviction notice. An elderly neighbor named Walter approached slowly, leaning heavily on his weathered wooden cane. Walter had watched Margaret bully 3 other families before they eventually left the neighborhood forever. He warned Daniel quietly that fighting Margaret meant facing endless harassment and manufactured violations. Daniel felt anger rising, remembering how hard he fought just to reclaim his civilian life. He refused to let one woman erase everything he sacrificed defending freedom for his country. Margaret threatened to fine him daily until he surrendered the lakefront access without further argument. Daniel's chest tightened, but he forced himself to remain calm despite the boiling frustration inside. Elena squeezed his hand, silently reminding him they were not facing this nightmare completely alone. Walter offered to testify, revealing years of buried evidence against Margaret's manipulative leadership tactics. Daniel realized this fight extended far beyond his own lake, touching every silenced homeowner nearby. He looked toward the water, remembering why he chose this place to finally find peace. That peace was being stolen by someone hiding behind fake rules and false authority. Margaret turned away, smirking as workers continued dismantling sections of his private wooden dock. Daniel's resolve hardened instantly, transforming his fear into unstoppable, focused determination for justice. He pulled out his phone and began recording every illegal action happening right before him. Margaret noticed the camera and barked orders for the workers to move faster immediately. Daniel's veteran instincts kicked in, recognizing intimidation tactics designed to silence frightened victims quickly. He stepped forward, declaring this lake property belonged legally to his family. Margaret laughed dismissively, claiming no court would ever side against the powerful HOA board. Walter whispered that several other families already lost their homes fighting similar unfair battles. Daniel glanced at Elena, seeing fear mixed with fierce, unwavering loyalty reflected in her eyes. He promised himself this lake would remain his sanctuary, not Margaret's personal kingdom anymore. The bulldozer engine roared again, tearing deeper into wood his grandfather once helped design. Daniel's memories flooded back, remembering family gatherings planned around this very peaceful shoreline. Margaret's smugness fueled something powerful inside him, awakening a fighter long thought retired. He turned toward Elena and said quietly that this fight was just beginning today. The sun climbed higher, casting long shadows across the wreckage of his stolen dream. Daniel spent that entire night gathering every document proving his rightful lake property ownership. Elena sat beside him, sorting old paperwork while sipping lukewarm coffee gone completely cold. Their kitchen table became a battlefield map covered in deeds, surveys. Walter arrived early morning carrying a dusty folder hidden away for several painful years. Inside were records detailing Margaret's history of manipulating votes and silencing dissenting board members. Daniel's eyes widened, realizing this corruption extended far deeper than just his lake dispute. Margaret had quietly altered community bylaws, granting herself unchecked power over every property decision. Several families left town quietly, unable financially to fight endless fabricated violation fines imposed. Daniel felt sick imagining how many veterans, immigrants, similar injustice silently. He vowed their suffering would finally matter, becoming evidence supporting his upcoming legal battle. Elena contacted a lawyer specializing in HOA corruption and unlawful property seizure cases nationwide. The attorney listened intently, recognizing immediately how strong Daniel's evidence truly was. Sarah explained that Margaret's actions violated both state property law and federal housing protections. Daniel felt hope ignite again, the same determination that once carried him through deployment. Margaret continued harassing Daniel with daily nuisance violation notices arriving. She fined him for grass length, mailbox color, and even decorative flags displayed proudly. Neighbors began noticing Daniel's resistance, slowly finding courage to share their own hidden stories. Walter organized a quiet meeting, inviting frightened families willing finally to speak the truth. One woman described losing her late husband's memorial garden after Margaret deemed it non-conforming. Another family revealed Margaret denied wheelchair ramp approval, calling it unattractive to the neighborhood. Daniel's anger transformed into purposeful energy, fueling his commitment toward exposing total community injustice. Sarah compiled testimonies, documents, of legal case against the HOA. Margaret attempted intimidating Daniel through threatening letters demanding immediate dock removal. Daniel refused to back down, standing firm despite mounting financial and emotional pressure building. Elena reminded him nightly that truth eventually defeats fear, no matter how powerful enemies seem. Daniel remembered battlefield lessons, understanding that courage means moving forward despite overwhelming uncertainty ahead. Sarah filed an official lawsuit, demanding $1 million in damages and HOA dissolution. News of the lawsuit spread quickly, shocking residents unaware of Margaret's hidden financial schemes. Investigators discovered Margaret embezzled community funds, disguising theft behind inflated maintenance fee charges. Daniel felt vindicated, realizing justice finally had undeniable evidence supporting every painful, exhausting struggle. Margaret's confident smile faltered slightly during the first official mediation hearing held downtown. She insisted Daniel was simply troublemaking, refusing community rules established for everyone's collective benefit. Sarah calmly presented documented proof, exposing Margaret's manipulation, embezzlement attempts. The mediator's expression shifted, recognizing serious legal violations far beyond typical neighborhood disagreements. Margaret's allies on the board began distancing themselves, fearing personal legal consequences emerging quickly. Daniel watched her confidence crumble, replaced by visible panic hidden behind forced calm composure. Elena squeezed his hand tightly, whispering that justice was finally turning powerfully in their favor. Walter smiled proudly, finally witnessing accountability arrive after years of suffering silently under Margaret. Daniel knew this hearing was only the beginning of Margaret's long-overdue downfall arriving. The lake breeze felt different now, carrying hope instead of fear across familiar shimmering water. The courtroom buzzed with tension as Daniel's lawsuit finally reached its decisive final hearing. Margaret sat stiffly, her usual confidence replaced by nervous, calculated glances toward her lawyer. Sarah presented overwhelming evidence proving systematic abuse, embezzlement. Witness after witness described years of harassment, discrimination. Margaret's leadership. Walter testified bravely, revealing documents proving Margaret altered bylaws without proper community approval ever. The judge listened intently, visibly disturbed by patterns revealing deliberate targeting of vulnerable homeowners. Daniel finally took the stand, voice steady despite years of suppressed anger and frustration. He described losing his dock, his peace, and he spoke about serving his country, only to fight another battle within his own home. The courtroom fell silent, moved by his quiet strength and unwavering determination throughout everything. Margaret's lawyer attempted weak defenses, but evidence overwhelmingly contradicted every claim presented desperately. Financial records confirmed Margaret diverted thousands of dollars meant for community maintenance projects. The judge announced findings, declaring Margaret guilty of fraud, harassment. Daniel exhaled deeply, feeling years of tension finally release from his exhausted, aching shoulders. The court awarded Daniel $1 million in damages for his suffering and stolen property. Beyond financial victory, the judge ordered immediate dissolution of the entire corrupt HOA organization. Gasps echoed through the courtroom as Margaret's authority crumbled completely within mere moments. Margaret's face turned pale, realizing everything she manipulated was permanently and publicly destroyed forever. Neighbors who once feared speaking now cheered openly, celebrating long overdue justice finally arriving. Walter hugged Daniel tightly, tears forming as years of silent suffering finally found resolution. Elena wrapped her arms around her husband, whispering proudly that his fight changed everything completely. Margaret was escorted out quietly, stripped of power, reputation, respect. Reports later revealed she faced additional criminal charges for embezzlement uncovered during the investigation. Her once pristine home, ironically, was filed by furious former neighbors. Daniel rebuilt his dock personally, using reclaimed wood symbolizing resilience and hard-fought freedom. Elena planted flowers along the shoreline, celebrating renewed peace finally returning to their sanctuary. Walter often visited, sharing coffee while watching sunsets reflect peacefully across calm lake water. The community thrived under transparent leadership chosen democratically by everyone. Families who once left in fear returned, rebuilding trust within their healed, united neighborhood. Daniel often stood quietly by the lake, remembering how close he came to losing everything. He realized courage wasn't about winning quickly, but refusing to surrender despite overwhelming pressure. His victory became inspiration, proving ordinary people could defeat corruption through truth and persistence. Local news featured his story, encouraging other victims nationwide to challenge unjust HOA abuses bravely. Daniel received letters from veterans and immigrants thanking him for restoring hope and dignity. Margaret's name became a quiet warning, reminding future leaders that power demands accountability always. Daniel smiled softly, watching Elena laugh freely beside the water they almost permanently lost. The lake glistened peacefully, finally reflecting justice instead of fear and manufactured intimidation. Standing strong against abuse, Daniel proved truth eventually triumphs over corruption and fear. His story became a powerful reminder that justice rewards those who refuse to stay silent.